Hey Donna, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So I think this is going to be a really fun conversation we're going to have because we're going to kind of continue up with some stuff we've been talking about in the past, which is kind of data and logistics. And I think the role you play and everything you do here at Aborn is going to be fascinating, especially given your experience. So for the listeners, for the viewers and stuff, tell me a little bit about kind of where you started, how you got started in logistics.
I started many years ago, right out of high school. That was before they had all this technology, believe it or not. I was the secretary to the traffic manager for Zaire Corporation.
Oh,
A lot of people nowadays don't even remember Zaire Corporation. It was the old Walmarts of the world. That's how long ago it was.
wow.
It was typing on a typewriter rather than a computer. No emails. Everything was done by phone or snail mail, you would call it now.
Right.
I moved up there to traffic clerk. I worked there for 10 years and then worked over to Foxborough Terminals as a traffic manager. Then I started with PMC as a traffic manager as well, became a general manager, and then moved here to Aborn as the director of logistics. So I've had my hands in, each piece of the logistics, the transportation end for our clients.
Yeah. So, wow, that's just fascinating. Especially just what did you find exciting about logistics? What made you stay like as long as it did?
It's forever changing.
Right.
And I learn something new every day. I've been in this business for years and I'm still learning. There's more different types of transportation coming on board. And now with all the technology, where you can see more of the issues that the shippers have
Yeah.
and try to correct it by either consolidating loads before they get to the destination or consolidating them at the destination before they get delivered to the final customer.
Right. So there's so much in my mind spinning, but I want to quickly go back to something you were saying about when you first started, especially the technology that we're using. Tell me a little bit about what it was like. What were you using for traffic planning? What were you using just for booking loads and whatnot? How did that work?
That was all done manually by paper and telephones, calling the trucking companies, letting them know which orders that you had to pick up and when they needed to be picked up, where they were going to. There was really no opportunities to consolidate orders because you couldn't see everything that would be moving that week. You would just be dealing with whatever shipment was in front of you at the time.
Wow. Like how is it just paper on paper? Like
Yeah,
how did
just
you
paper on
how did you
paper.
keep that going? How did you stay organized with all that stuff?
Many file cabinets and boxes of papers, and it was hard.
What about, I was reading something today where like they were talking, it was like this whole LinkedIn conversation. I'm sorry to go off kind of our rundown, but they were talking about how like, hey, I just got an invoice from 2 years ago. How did you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with like historical stuff? How are you dealing with that where something that was way back in the past, was it just you kept giant cabinets and like had paper on paper forever? Like,
Oh yeah, we had lines and lines of file cabinets. We would keep like 7 years of paperwork on file. And now here at Aborn, we don't have any file cabinets.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
So talk to me a little bit real quick about what you do here at Aborn and explain kind of the day-to-day and kind of what you're doing just as we kind of start to transition into how we're using data and how it's all changed.
Okay, I currently run the load planning department, where we handle the day-to-day operations for our clients that are in the TMS, where we'll route their orders, track and trace, and make sure everything is working the way that it should be. And if there's any opportunities to save them money on combining orders, contract rates or contracted lanes for carriers, things in that nature.
Right. And that's a full-time, like 8 to 5 job that you're doing. And that's with the added benefit of technology, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. But nowadays you're able to see if there's Client A has a shipment coming from New Jersey to Massachusetts, and it's a half a truck. But client B also has half a truck coming from New Jersey to Massachusetts. We're able to combine them and save money for both of the clients.
Now, that's like the fact. You were a little kind of behind, like, transparency alert, but you were telling me about this earlier about like that's how one of the really nice things. But I want to take a step back real quick, and I want to identify what you view as data, because I find it to be a big buzzword, right? A lot of people, you can say data, and you go around this office and you can say, hey, what's your data? And everyone has a different definition of it. So what do you in the load planning department define as data? What sources that you're trying to track so you can measure, so you can create insights, and you can create metrics? What do you guys go with?
The more information you have on the load, the better.
Right.
Basically, what we look at is the origin, the destination, the pieces, the weight, the number of shipments, the shipping pattern of the each client.
Oh, okay. Now, how did, like, so you say the more information you have, the better. How did that work prior to technology, or to like data gathering, to this type of stuff? Is it all just paper?
Yes.
But then how do you keep any standards in that? How did that work?
A lot of it was kept in your head or in notes. They would be repeated shippers, so you would know, okay, this one ships, every Monday. And if okay, well, I usually see 3 or 4 of these, so let's put this one aside until the next one comes up.
How did institutional knowledge work in that? Like, was it when people left, like, oh crap, we're about to lose a lot of information?
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah, and a lot of it is in your head. The more that you deal with it, the more that you work with it, the more that you know. It might not be written down anywhere. So, like right now, I know that one of the shippers up in Maine, they ship to one of our clients, 4 or 5 different locations. So when we see one order come into the TMS now, we know that there's going to be 4 or 5 other shipments that are going to be coming in. So we're going to hold off on routing that until they all come in. But if somebody comes in tomorrow and doesn't know that, they might look at it and see just one shipment come in and just go ahead and route it right away.
So how does data work now then? I know, like, in the past, it was writing it all down, trying to keep it so, hey, I can pull up this piece of paper in a file cabinet that's like 20 rows deep and finding this thing. How does it work now? Is it essentially just kind of a Word doc, or how are you kind of keeping track of everything?
It would all be on the screen showing all the shipments that are currently open, so you can see all of them at once.
So does that become difficult in the sense of, like, when you're focusing on just one shipment, getting that done? How like, is that almost overwhelming when you see a lot of that, or how does that work?
No, because we're able to know the shipping pattern for our clients, and we'll do based on the shipping pattern and the pricing and the carriers in place, we can put in what we call a route guide. So a lot of the one-offs will be handled just with the route guide. So we'll just see the ones that are exceptions, like the shipper in Maine, where we know that they have a few shipments every week, that they'll pop up on our screens like, okay, now we need to start consolidating these.
So in the past, when that type of stuff would happen, how were you alerted to changes? Like, how were you? Because
By reviewing the past history.
Oh, really?
Right. We would say, okay, well, these were usually just one-offs, but now all of a sudden they're shipping 2 or 3 times a week. Now we're going to start taking a look at them to see if we can start consolidating them with other loads.
So that's one of the ways that you're using data now. But what are other ways that data helps support kind of a load planning operation? What else? What are some of the pros of the data that in the past you just didn't have?
It helps with the negotiation for the spot quotes as well.
Okay.
If we have a shipment that we know ships 3 times a week and we need to put it out for a spot quote, we can go back to the carrier and just say, listen, you have this 3 times a week. We need your best rate. Or if we have a shipment going from New Jersey to Mass, and we're trying to get a good rate on it. But we also know we have another shipment coming from Mass going back to New Jersey. We can also offer that to the carrier as a round trip.
Yeah, because you're trying to do the no empty miles type of
Right.
thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about cons? Because the one thing that when you were talking earlier kind of stood out to me was the idea that when you're in this paper environment, it's not all just collected. You have to communicate. You have to be a really good communicator to kind of understand where everything is, because it's all in your head half the
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see that kind of being an issue sometimes with the reliance on data becoming more and more of a thing within load planning, where the communication's kind of following down? Or are you still picking up the phone? Are you still talking? Is it still kind of, how do you kind of get the communication out? Is more, I guess, my question.
Well, we have reports that we can send out automatically to the clients and also to the carriers with any information that we want. But there's still a lot of phone work on trying to get updates on orders as to, how come this didn't pick up? It was scheduled to pick up yesterday, but it's still showing as open.
Right.
That's still being worked on. We do have systems set up where it's supposed to be automatic as to why it wasn't picked up. But like I said, that's still being worked on. So there's still a lot of day-to-day communications between the client, us, and the carriers.
So is that where you can see shippers kind of getting in trouble with data, where they're relying on automation too much and relying on the technology a little too much? Like, what's your experience with that?
I could see some of the shippers don't have the right technology, I think, where they would need to make sure that they're getting the information that they actually need rather than something that is just showing, okay, this picked up and this delivered. They want to see that, it picked up on time, which carrier picked it up, the charges that they picked it up on to see if it was within their budget. I think that is the information that would help them more.
What's some advice that you would have, given your deep breadth of knowledge and your experience and everything? How do you blend institutional knowledge that someone probably has with the data? What's kind of some best practices or tips and advice you have for that, given that you kind of are this perfect example?
Right. Well, you can't always rely on the data because you would look at, say, a month's worth of data and saying, okay, well, these shipments, they probably could have been combined as a truckload with stop-offs. But somebody who's in it every day would know that this customer only receives at nighttime, and this customer requires a drop trailer.
Right.
There's all sorts of different nuances between the customers and the shippers that I think would be hard to have one technology include all of those.
So what do you find to kind of be that sweet spot of a shipper or a load planner checking the data? Is it a monthly kind of like audit your reports, or is this sort of like kind of a weekly thing? Kind of try to go look through your week of like loads and make sure that the technology is doing its intended purpose, and then provide some of the context that you can always shape around the technology.
Right. I mean, well, the load planning, we're looking at the data for that week every day. We're in the system every day looking at it and planning the shipments for the week. As far as looking at the history, we need to look at it on a monthly basis to see what has changed. If any shipping pattern has changed. We have one client that had a very large volume shipping from Texas to California, and their shipping pattern has changed because now those are moving as customer pickups. So they don't have those lanes any longer.
Interesting. I'm sure there's a million things that I didn't ask. I mean, is there anything that you think about, especially when it comes to data and load planning, that I should have asked you? Is there stuff that, what's advice you would have for someone up here in the field of, hey, I'm trying to just get a handle of this stuff. What's some best practices you have that you've used in kind of booking freight?
Just ask as many questions as you can and get as much information as you can on the orders. because you never know. The shipper might just assume that you know that they need it picked up within the hour and that it must deliver tomorrow by 7 a.m. They might just say, okay, we have a load to pick up and it needs to deliver. It might be a 2-day transit, but no, they need it expedited.
What about explaining best practices to shippers? Like, how do you do that? Especially when they're going to have something like data, like they're going to have technology looking at them saying like, I can do this.
Oh, yeah. We've had some clients come up to us and say, I have 2 skids that I need picked up in New Jersey to get to California. I need picked up Friday and delivered Monday. So we give them the options like, okay, well, the standard transit would have it delivered Wednesday, and this is how much it's going to cost you. If you want to get it there for Tuesday, it'll cost you this. And to get it there for Monday, it'll cost you this much money, and give them the options like, is it really worth this much to get it there for 2 days earlier?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing I constantly hear. It's like you half the time you're just trying to explain, here's sort of what a better practice would be. Instead of just like, I know you want it here, but like, how important is that? Because if you do that, it's going to cost you X, Y, and Z and everything else.
Right, exactly.
So I guess the final question I have, and this will be a fun one, I think, and I don't think it's going to be a long answer, but what do you prefer? Do you like the new world? Do you like that you have technology at your fingertips? Do you like that you have this screen that's telling you kind of where everything is? And then when you go to give a best practice, you can always say, well, this is what the computer told me, or this is what the technology is going. Or did you like kind of that more personal approach that you had to kind of take with like paper and pen and like trying to just write all this stuff down? Like, what do you like?
Definitely the technology, because it's all there. The history is right there, that you can just search, use a keyword for the search and it'll all come up. Before you would have to dig through file cabinet after file cabinet trying to find the history of the order. But definitely with the technology, it makes it a lot easier.
One day we're just going to have to do an episode on you just explaining what like a day-to-day was like back in there. Just like, all right, a keyword, like what did that mean back then? Just like what do the buzzwords of today, what did they look like yesterday? Like back in the past? That'd be fun.
The only thing I could say though is that the technology, if for some reason, the internet goes down or we lose power, everything just stops.
True. I mean, it's going to probably a more mobile world, right? You're probably starting to see more and more stuff right on the phone. Mm-hmm. Although that's a whole another bee's nest you can get into of like, is they really going to do something on their phone? It feels like such a personal device, and to make it become more and more of a business tool.
Right.
You're
exactly.
like, oh, geez, I don't know if someone's going to want to do that. And like, how connected do you really want to be to where your freight is?
Oh, we have drivers that accept loads over their phone, will send the PODs over their phone.
Yeah. We could definitely talk Uber Freight Convoy, and that'd be fun to talk. So I think we'll wrap up this conversation, but definitely leave it open for a ton of other things. So if someone's listening or watching, what's the best way to kind of get in touch with you, Donna?
Through the Aborn website.
Yeah, Aborn.
You can just email me at dpaton@abornandco.com.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll leave a whole little, in the show notes, I'll leave a way to get in contact with you. I mean, you have so much information. So if someone really wants to talk, I mean, I send you all the time when we got like people trying to book freight that aren't with a company. Like we just send them to you because you're like, okay, here's the best brokers. Here's the best people. Because just you do so much. That's a great thing. So huge resource. Definitely someone to reach out to. But otherwise, that's about it for the show. So thanks for joining me, Donna.
All right. Well, thank you.
What are some benefits you experience with data in your load planning? Leave a comment letting me know. And in the meantime, enjoy past episodes of Consulting Logistics and subscribe to us by clicking the subscription button. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Peace.